We're back on the early morning agriculture roundup here on 580 WIBW. Greg Akagi with you this morning. And right now it's time for the Kansas Livestock Scene. And joining us, as always, Scarlett Hagins, Vice President of Communications with the Kansas Livestock Association. Scarlett, how are you?
I'm doing fairly well, Greg. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you. Once again, another week. Well, depending on where you were at, you probably got some good rains, and depending on where you were at, you didn't. It was one of those, if you were under the storms, good for you, and if not, well, sorry to be, so to speak.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It sure was hit and miss. Some folks got some good rain, like you said. Some other folks just got a lot of heat and humidity. It kind of depended on where you were.
All right. Well, let's get right to it. We've got a lot to talk about. First off, the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. This past week, we did hear of an extension to apply for CFAP.
That's right, Greg. USDA announced just this week that they are going to extend the application period until September 11th. The original application deadline was August 28th, but they're gonna extend it to September 11th. I will say that producers that have been approved already have submitted their applications, already been approved, and have initially received their 80% of their CFAP payment. They should now be receiving the remaining 20% from USDA in the coming months. And then according to USDA, from what we understand, moving forward from here on out, if you're a producer and you have not applied, but you are going to prior to September 11th, then those producers will receive 100% of their total payment. If you have yet to apply, your application gets accepted, you will now just go ahead and receive 100% instead of them breaking it up in that 80-20 that they did in the beginning. So if you haven't applied, go ahead and get that application in, and then that way it'll get moved through the approval process. If now that we're still subject to the payment limits, of course, and that the CFAP payments limit is $250,000 per person or entity. And this limitation applies to the total amount of CFAP payments made with respect to all eligible commodities. So crops, livestock, whatever your commodity may be, that it'll be a total of that. Now, there will be special payment limitation rules applied to participants that are like corporations, limited liability companies, and limited partnerships, things like that. So there will be some rules applied on that, special limitation rules applied on that. But if you have not got your application in and you are planning to do so, I encourage you to do that. And you can find the application and tons of information regarding the CFAP program, a payment calculator, various things like that on our website, kla.org. You can access that straight from the front page. It's kind of the first thing you see is our coronavirus page. And if you click on that, the first segment in there is pertaining to the CFAP program. And it will have everything you'll need to know there to apply. So again, new deadline, September 11th. Get your applications in. That final 20% payment should be coming to those producers that have applied already and received that initial 80%. So still going on. I know, they've made some changes to various commodities that are being accepted, but nothing has changed on the livestock front. So just be aware, nothing's changed there. Just continue to apply as you were planning to.
Scarlett Hagins with the Kansas Livestock Association, our guest on the Kansas Livestock Scene here on 580 WIBW. All right, Scarlett, another thing to talk about, KLA did present special testimony this past week to the Special Committee on Economic Recovery, and this, of course, on what we've seen as far as the pandemic's impact is concerned.
That's exactly right, Greg. Just this past Thursday, like you said, our staff member, Aaron Popelka, testified in front of the Special Committee on Economic Recovery about the impact the pandemic has had. His specific testimony, of course, addressed the livestock industry. Now, the Special Committee is an interim Kansas legislative committee made up of both House and Senate members from both parties. And the committee is charged with examining the impacts the pandemic had on various industry segments, and then essentially developing recommendations for next year's legislative session. So for us specifically, KLA highlighted how, of course, the packing plant slowdowns caused a backlog of cattle and feed yards. We've talked about that a lot, of course, here, you and I, Greg, but the struggles that created and that backlog of cattle. And then at the same time that was happening, we were seeing grocery stores struggling to meet consumer needs. And so anyway, just highlighting that. And then, during all of this happening, this caused, of course, price declines for cattle producers, but price inclines for consumers. So just a lot of opposite-ended things and things that need to be addressed in the future. And a couple of other things that Aaron talked about in his testimony is federal assistance provided through the CARES Act, and highlighted a few state-specific changes that could help the recovery process. These included, some funding for equipment upgrades and expansion of cold storage at small state-inspected meat processing plants, possibly developing laws to prevent inconsistent health-related restriction among counties, finding ways to reduce property tax burden on agriculture, preserving sales tax exemptions for ag inputs and equipment. Just some things that we feel like are important for our members that this committee considers. So we obviously won't know what the outcome of that will be until further down the road, but we were glad that we were able to present testimony on that and addressing some of our concerns in the livestock industry.
Scarlett, let's move on. And also that took place on Thursday was the first KLA, Kansas State University Ranch Management Field Day. And I know leveraging genetics was a big topic at the field day itself.
That's right, Greg. We had our first field day. You and I have discussed, our field days on here previously, but this was our first one. We've got another one coming up on Tuesday down in Uniontown. But this one this week on Thursday was near Smith Center. It was hosted by W&S Ranch. And we had about 80 in attendance, which we were happy to see and glad that they felt like they could come out and enjoy the day there at the ranch. And like you said, leveraging genetics was one of the main topics. The Weltmers have placed really a great deal of focus on genetic improvement over the past 17 years. And most of that has been implementing reproduction technologies like artificial insemination, and really focusing in on carcass quality and improving the cattle that they provide to the packing plant, and that ultimately becomes the high quality beef on consumers' plates. We always want to provide them a high quality eating experience, and the Weltmers, like many other Kansas farmers and ranchers, are really dedicated to that process. And so they spend a lot of time and dedicate a lot of effort to doing that. And so they went through kind of what they do on their ranch. And then we also heard from Select Sire's beef sire analyst, John Herrick, on just some different things that ranchers can do to improve their end product. Maybe it's using estimated EPDs is what I'm trying to say, in bull selection to genetic testing to the use of reproductive technologies. Whatever your goal is, maybe it's to improve the end product, maybe it's to improve some maternal traits in your cow herd. Just encouraging producers to think through those things and determine what their goal is, and then figuring out how to achieve that through the tools that we have here in the beef industry. And then also, just real quick, K-State Extension Beef Systems Specialist Justin Wagner was also on the program, and he was really focused on management steps, vaccination protocols, nutrition decisions, things like that should be considered during the post-weaning stage, and really explain some of the things that producers should consider as they wean their calves, which we're coming on kind of that time of the year. Of course, it depends on when your cows calve, but there'll be a lot of people working on weaning right now. And so giving them some tips on reducing that stress on calves and making sure that they stay healthy. And so it was a really good program, but we're going to post all the educational sessions from that program for those that weren't able to attend. We're going to post that on our website, kla.org, if you want to go in and watch those. Again, our next field day, and actually our last field day in this year's series, will be on Tuesday, August 18th at G3 Cattle Company near Uniontown. You can find more information again on our website about that, what the program will include, directions on how to get there, things like that.
And finally, Scarlett, as we wind down the program, U.S. Cattle Trace, they continue to see and be able to get and gain industry support.
That's right, Greg. NCBA Board of Directors adopted a new policy back, what has that been, a couple of weeks ago now at the summer business meeting there, but they adopted a new policy in support of U.S. Cattle Trace and its mission of advancing disease traceability. Of course, that's something that's very important to our members and livestock producers across Kansas. And this policy resolution was brought forward by KLA and 6 other cattlemen's associations from, Florida, Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee, Texas, and Washington. And the policy essentially calls for NCBA to support the expansion of U.S. Cattle Trace and directs the organization to encourage and help facilitate state affiliate support and educational efforts. So basically just supporting that continued effort to get an industry-led traceability program going.
And one final thing, I just want to talk about the hours of service waiver. Got another extension on that?
They did, Greg. Just announced this week, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration once again has extended its hours of service waiver for livestock haulers due to the pandemic. Of course, the exemption was due to expire August 14th, but now has been extended and is set to expire September 14th. One thing I do want to mention here, livestock feed haulers also are included in this exemption, but only those transporting finished feed. Those hauling feed ingredients only are ineligible for the waiver. So just be clear on that. Now, we've posted the new waiver on our website, again, under the coronavirus response page on our website. So for drivers wanting to print that out and keep it in their cab, just to make sure that they can show proof of the exemption, feel free to go on there and print that off.
All right, Scarlett, we're out of time, but as always, great to talk to you, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, Greg. You too.
That's Scarlett Hagins with the Kansas Livestock Association, our guest on the Kansas Livestock Scene here on 580 WIBW.